opinion. The two examples you've given, these people have huge followings.
Yes.
So, and it didn't start yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it about these people that gives them a following? What is it? There must be something people see, unless you're saying that those people who follow them fall in that category of people who you say are mad.
I think as well, even as you've given us a proverb, I'll give you another one. And in Swahili they say, mjinga kirevuka, mwerevu yutabani. You realize. And when we have this discussion right here, it is a question of, there have been conversations that are ongoing. Kenyans have been speaking, but has the other side, the government, been listening to them? Has there been honest conversation between them? Because the feeling out here is Kenyans are not being heard, but decisions are being shoved down their throats, even when they are speaking. So honest conversations, clearly, there is a side that needs to come to the table with clean hands.
And there's a component of honest discussion that must be understood. The key thing that underpins a honest conversation is those who have it are grown up, okay? Or are in the process of embracing being grown-ups. And it often begins by understanding that you are a human being like everybody else, and in the process of living your life, you will make mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah, true. I think it's important that even the duty bearers also understand that they do not have this monopoly of wisdom and being right, so that we talk to each other. You know, ordinarily I've realized that there's a notion that if you are in government, you cannot accept any mistake.
No, you cannot possibly be wrong.
You cannot possibly be wrong. Now, when you get to a place where people ordinarily, again, allow me to talk about madmen differently, people who ordinarily will not speak. Somebody like C.S. Muturi is one that is not known to be on the edge.
He's not a blabbermouth.
Yeah.
So he's not that person that you'll say actually gets to the edge. Once you see such like cracks, then you realize there's need for us to talk to each other. We are not doing that. The issue of abduction specifically, I don't know whether to call it a policy or whatever. You know, Nairobi has got diplomatic status that only rivals probably South Africa. That if you were to go away elsewhere, you have to go to Europe. In the West, but with these abductions going on and nothing appears to actually be explained around it, it really downgrades the Nairobi diplomatic status and even the human rights status of Nairobi. That is something we need to talk about. I am a Kenyan, by the way. Totally Kenyan. When I talk about Kenyan, the Kenyan shilling runs in my blood. When I actually see that foreign operatives can actually come to Nairobi. You know, there's the pride that comes with being Kenyan. It has got nowhere else. Imagine that Ugandans, and those are actually my uncles, that will come to Nairobi, capture somebody as big as Besigye. That's a military man.
Yes.
He's not an ordinary guy. He's a big force in his country. He's captured like a locust in Nairobi and transferred across the border. Yesterday, there was an issue of another person.
Tanzanian,
The Tanzanian being abducted. And it looks like now, for the first time, East Africa has got one thing they agree on. They normally don't agree on anything else. A lot of times, the East African countries do not agree. All of a sudden, now it looks like all of us have become now the Federation of Abductions. Because that happens. Abductions happens across the borders very easily. In our southern neighbor, all you need to do is you have to put the president's photo outside your business and you're safe. Unasifu tu kiongozi na uko sawa. Here, we've been a little bit free to talk and do everything else. Now they're bringing that abduction here. When we import,
why are they bringing it?
Because we've allowed.
We have a homegrown culture of abductions.
Right here. What are you talking about?
Elsewhere.
Today there are 80 Kenyans. There are 80 missing people. The other day there were 6 of them missing. One of the 6 is still missing. The few weeks before that, there were 3 gentlemen who were nabbed in Kitengela. So there are people all over the place. Yesterday, in the middle of Kiserian, there was somebody where the crowds had to now start trying to. Was it Kiserian? No, where the crowds had to try and disperse DCI because they thought that they were going to abduct somebody.
That's what I'm saying.
The lesson is being learned right here.
That's what I'm saying. That that was not the norm in Nairobi. And in Nairobi, you cannot get away with these things without noises. Elsewhere, it happens quietly. Nothing happens. Business goes on as usual. People are abducted. They are killed. In our neighbors, without naming names, is that happens. And normally, there's not noise What you need to do is to just be politically correct with the leadership of the day and you're okay. That is not how Kenya is wired. That is not the constitution that we actually hold on to. That is not the Kenya we live in. So it is something that we need to talk about. And as much as people will really want to wish it away, it's something that is actually breaking the country.
Who do you think needs to have this conversation? Because let's just allow me to unfold the question a little bit. Who needs to have this conversation? You've given examples of cabinet secretary who's come out and said this, but one would take fault with that because the abduction with his son happened 6 months ago. Never said anything about it. Never said anything in public about it. His son was returned. That was okay. The former deputy president has been speaking.
Immediate former
deputy president has.
We can just call him the second.
Okay, fine.
The second deputy president.
Or we can call him Rigathi Gachagua.
Yeah.
He's been speaking, he's been saying a lot of things, and one would ask, why is he not being honest? Because there are certain things that he's talking about today, which he had an opportunity to talk about just 4 short months ago that he didn't. There are people who are saying things, but they're not honest. So who's to have the honest conversation if some of the things that are being said are coming from a position of defense and another side of things being said are coming from a position of offense? And not offense like guarding yourself, offense but by having been mistreated. Who's to have the honest conversation?
When you speak and it appears that the things you're saying are born out of convenience, there seems to be an increased body of individuals saying the same thing. There's a background of activities that have taken place. And then you speak. So the word convenience comes to mind. Does convenience equal honesty?
And as well as, even as we talk about the honesty here, we realize that this honesty in government, remember the president had said, I don't know, ask the IG. IG says, I don't know. DCI says, I don't know. Kenyans are saying, you do know.
Let's begin with the basics. Number one, people are grabbed off the streets. CCTV captures that. They disappear for weeks. Others show up dead. Others show up alive. Then we start having a conversation as a people. As we are having that conversation, there are those, quote unquote, in defense. And there are those, of course, naturally, who are opposed to it. So, the president speaks and says, this is a menace, it needs to stop. Effectively saying, I am not the one who is in charge. Then there are individuals who show up and say, they are defending. The IG of the police shows up and says, the police do not do such things. We are also looking into it. Then you find a politician picking up a microphone or a blogger somewhere picking up a phone and quote unquote defending. And even justifying and rationalizing why abductions are okay. So you realize that we are talking about abductions and somebody brings up something about discipline. Even calling people children. Those two things are not the same. They are mutually exclusive. If people are misbehaving, there is a way of dealing with it. And there is an abduction, it's a crime on its own. We cannot confuse, we can't conflate. Those two are not the same. So you bring in a communication that looks like the cause and effect that I spoke about, that probably people are disappearing because they are bad-mannered. Already what does that do? It rationalizes.
Actually, it also tells you, it also reveals, and it tells you what that person understands with what is going on. And if you ask me, that is an honest conversation. The person actually telling you, this is how I think, this is how I feel, and this is what I would do.
And and as well, Arnold, when you find that the people who are having these conversations and calling these children are people with close proximity to the president.
But when I was talking about basics, look at this. The president has said, I am not doing it. The IG says the police are not doing it. But you pick a microphone and justify why people are being, somebody else picks a microphone and justifies that. So exactly who are you defending? You clearly are defending the abductors. Who are you speaking for? The abductors. But the funny thing is that then DCI does not reach out to those people who are justifying why people are being abducted.
So that they assist with investigations.
Yes, because if you are defending, no, what as in city, if you are defending, what are you defending?
So I hear you saying that government is not being honest.
No, I'm just saying.
No.
The government, because the competent office, the spokesperson of government, the chief spokesperson is the president, right?
Yes.
The competent office that should actually be responding to these issues when it talks to the protection of lives and property of Kenyans is the IG, police. They have said they are not doing it. And somebody else, and somebody else is justifying. But then somehow, DCI does not reach out to that person to come and tell them what they know.
Okay, you've given the ingredients. My question is very simple.
Yeah.
Please pause your question. This might be lost here. He's focusing on one individual. There was a conference that was held in Bungoma, and very many people also said the same thing.
And that's what I'm saying. I stand up as the head of the house. If you are a lawyer, you take me to, I'm in court, I'm the accused, and I tell you, including telling the court, I did not do it. And then you show up as a lawyer and you say, my client did it because of. Do you really still represent me?
Okay.
Okay, now to ask your question.
If you're trying to make a cake and you have eggs, flour, sugar, butter, whatever, you put them all together, it becomes a cake, no?
Yes.
Is the government being honest in its position right now? From what you have said, from these things, one said I didn't do it, other said I don't know, then you come and say this indiscipline has led to 1, 2, 3. Is the government being honest about what's going on right now?
Now, that is where then we come to the definition of what is government.
It's a yes or no question, Arnold.
It can't be a yes or no.
Yes, it is.
Because-
Is government being honest
because
in its
what-
position right now
what will be government
about
in that
the
issue?
conversations that are happening as concerns the welfare of Kenyans and the right to not be disappeared?
I will answer the yes or no, but I'll qualify first. First of all, what then would be government in this instance? If the head of state says, this is a menace, it needs to stop, and we will stop it, right? The IG says, we, the police. That is the constitutional office. Do not do such. We don't do such. But somebody else who appears to know speaks in the name of government. So then government has to sort its communication. Because if the chief spokesperson of government says this is wrong and it should stop, but somebody else in the name of government, then we need to ask which government is either of them speaking for. We only know that we have got one. So government has to sort its communication first so that then we are not speaking at cross purpose. Now we have got somebody who sits at the highest decision-making agency. The Council of the Wise, as gathered by the President, the Cabinet, coming out and saying that also his son disappeared. That then, before I respond to your question, this is it. When it comes to the issues of life and fundamental human rights, there should never be us versus them. You know, why I say this, because I have for years run a leadership development program under different organizations, IFES, ELF, Open Future Hub, and some of the mentees that I had were in the streets. Some of them disappeared, and I know at least one who surfaced dead. Those are kids that I actually taught when they went first year, second year. I taught them about leadership and development. I introduced them to politics. They are doing the very, very things I was teaching them, and now for that, they get disappearing. So when you find people saying that you cannot be, there are people doubting abductions. Let's start from a place where people want to rationalize, to normalize and justify an illegality like abduction. The same will speak to all other policies. Are they working, for example? Like if you were to ask Kenyans, just take time and look at the policies as promised, or rather, let's talk about the Kenya Kwanza Administration Manifesto. This is the manifesto as promised, right? And then there's the manifesto as is being implemented.
Two different things.
They are two different things. So when people ask that, are they being malicious? We can pick out basic things. That Hustler Fund, as was promised to the people during campaigns, is not Hustler Fund as being administered today. It's clear, it's not science.
Okay, so
when people ask question,
you should answer them.
So when people ask question, it's easy. It will be important for us to say that there is what we promised, but in the process of implementing, some variations changed. So that's where honesty then comes in. And there's nothing wrong. Sometimes when you promise, you realize that at the implementation level, it changes. Couldn't. So you do not insist that it's the same thing. Then there is another thing, a little bit controversial, but allow me to say this.
I want to say it quickly before we take a break,
Allow me to actually say this. In strategic planning, when you're planning, ordinarily, let me not go to the technical languages, but you are doing a strategic plan. So you're going to do the vision, mission statement, values, and then you come to the strategic goals. As you go down, then of course, as you try to, at the business level, you try to come up with the resources and how you actually organize out. You come up with the organogram, or rather the business the staff chart, the management chart, right? It defines the people that you are going to have, right? To ensure that you get that particular goal. So today, for example, we planned the Kenya Kwanza administration planned how to do things. It identified the people it wanted. So when you bring in Oparanya, you bring in Joho, you bring in
Badi and the
Badi, Wandai, and the others.
Yes.
People who are fundamentally opposed to this. At what point did they have a Damascus moment? As in, if it was a
You
strategic
should be
plan.
telling us this.
No, I'm wait.
You're asking
No,
us.
that I'm saying
Yeah.
is the point of where we realized. I'm taking you somewhere. So you have got Adam Solo, for example, coming in as an advisor. That is the core person who actually was doing the Azimio manifesto on the other side. So it's okay because plans are supposed to be reviewed. You then do not insist that we are still implementing the plan. We are not implementing the plan if we have changed the manpower along the way without reviewing the plan. Because the plan ordinarily, in the organogram, it defines the persons you want. So along the way, I'm thinking, number one, we need to review the plans. It's nothing wrong with reviewing the plan and saying, this is what we promised. We are not able to actually do that, or rather, the circumstances. And by the virtue that people came to the streets to complain about the policies that came out of the plan, it means that they were giving us feedback, right? And therefore, as we change, we cannot insist that we are implementing the same thing.
So what Arnold is saying essentially is that government needs to come out and say that the way in which we thought things would go are actually not going. And you actually sitting in the position, I mean, you're wearing a different hat today, but sitting in that position should be able to advise and say, you know what, guys, it's time for us to actually tell people in Kenya what exactly is going on. No?
Because we were talking about having a conversation, right?
Yes, and having an open
So
and
the
honest one.
reason why we're not having a honest discussion is simply because circumstances have changed, the plans have changed, but we insist we are doing the same thing.
And
that is why, because this shouting, this left, right, and sound shouting is simply based on us not making progress on what we should be saying. If we only came to a place where we accept that things have changed and this is where we're going, it doesn't kill anybody.
Let's take a break and take a look at what's happening with weather and traffic. We'll continue our conversation with Arnold Maliba this morning, and we're looking at, all right, is it time for government to have honest conversations, or is it time for us to have honest conversations with government? How exactly will that work? It's 20 minutes to 8 o'clock.
At Standard Talanta Academy, a collaboration between Talanta Institute and Standard Group, we are forging the next generation of media moguls, driving economic transformation and shaping the future. Introducing our flagship program, the Media Mastery Course. From TV and film production, photography to digital journalism, we are about action. Our hands-on approach means you will be creating, producing and innovating from day one. But we don't stop at technical skills. We empower you with life and entrepreneurship skills. And with Standard Group, home to KTN, Radio Maisha, Spice FM, The Standard Newspaper, and more, you'll have unparalleled access to real-world experience and opportunities. Enroll now and ignite your journey in the heart of the creative economy. Visit www.talanta.ac.ke or call 0724 468 468 for more information. Standard Talanta Academy. Unleash creativity.
I wanted to say most, but all of our clients have no ability to afford an advocate.
When you're paying bail for some of these people,
yes,
what's been like the amount of money that you pay bail for?
Yeah, the least amount we've paid bail is 500 shillings.
This person was in for how long?
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
They could not afford 500 shillings.
Currently, the statistics are that men are the most arrested gender in our country. Yeah, and it's basically a criminalization of poverty. You're at the wrong place at the wrong time. You live in a low-income area.
When you're talking about these things, I'm wondering why this is not a national crisis.
Because the voices of poor people, it's white noise. It's not loud enough for anyone to unfortunately care. Very few people do. So imagine what that does to a 17-year-old boy, or I think the other one was 16. How do you then interact with your peers? You've been in prison.
second starts now.
Time travel.
Time travel.
The Ramas wako na 10 points. We clap for them. Mpangilio ambao unaitwa the couples game show. All gonna nijibu nini na tumeona change.
Niko tu hapo.
Sawa.
Mimi kibao sako kwa nyumba.
Shapita na uko shapata pole. Na kama uko pale nyumbani na ungelipenda kuungana na sisi, unatuandikia tu SMS kwa 22151 ama unatupatia maoni yako at KTN Home.
Yaani lazima mkajuana miezi 8. Si ati mnajuana siku moja, miezi 8.
Kwa all social media, iwe Twitter, iwe nini. Unatufuata ama unanifuata mimi Zaina Ruhi Murungu.
Just summoning Oscar Sudi or directing him to go to DCI and record a statement because ostensibly he seems to be doing something.
Let me add something to this. We're looking at page 4 of the Standard, and there is an article here that is attributed to the Minister for Internal, whatever you call it, Interior, speaking at an interdenominational service at Embakasi Police College, Nairobi yesterday, and says in countries like the UK, Australia, and the US, legal frameworks are in place to safeguard their citizens, and as a country we must have the confidence to also protect our citizens from bad behaviors of social media. Then he goes further to say, there is no government or policy sanctioning abductions. What the Inspector General and the police leadership have said is clear. There is nothing like that. That is abductions.
Let's have this conversation, probably like mature people. We've got very few minutes to go. But first of all, let's not talk about Kenyans. Let's start from a place where we really get serious. Number one, a foreign country comes to Nairobi, captures a citizen. All of us are seeing it on TV, right? Let's go with Besigye, right? Mm-hmm. The foreign affairs, our foreign affairs ministry has not sent a protest note to Uganda that Kenya's sovereignty was actually violated. Mm-hmm. What does that say? Even if they've not said anything,
that it
means they sanctioned.
It means it was not violated.
Mm-hmm. No, it means it was violated. Just because they sanctioned does not mean that the violation is about laws and how countries work.
No, what I'm referring to, Arnold, is that those who should have sent the protest note are the ones I'm referring to.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Just because the Foreign Affairs Ministry has not sent a protest note to Uganda, the Ugandan ambassador has not been summoned by the Kenyan government to explain how Ugandan forces came to Nairobi and picked Besigye. That in and of itself, we cannot pretend that is normal. Mm-hmm. Our sovereignty was violated, whether it's sanctioned or not. That cannot be entertained. 2, we have seen people getting disappeared. To actually get around and be clever, try to speak English about that is nonsense. Mm-hmm. As in, we see people, like to some of us it's actually very, very personal. I'm talking about my mentees here. I don't want to mention names so that they're not targeted. Mm-hmm. My mentees that are known, I've run a political leadership program for about 5-6 years. So I've got so many of them out there. So I've seen them disappear. They're not playing jokes. So when people try to come out and rationalize, I'm using 3 words, that you justify abduction, you rationalize, and you want to normalize that. We can't get there. When it comes to human life, when it comes to issues to do with the fundamental human rights, we cannot have us versus them. We should only be having one side.
It sounds to me, though, Arnold, that the very government that you have...
That's what I'm saying.
Hold on. That you have previously defended...
I even defend them now.
Allow me to finish. Yeah. That you have defended to within an inch of your existence is going in the opposite direction, but there should be an inside conversation that you, for example, should be having. And saying that, guys, we cannot allow this to happen. And you know what? The folks who are on the other side of the divide, who are begging for some kind of audience, would hope that folks who are on the inside of this thing would be able to... Mm-hmm. If now we are saying that this is the manner in which you're thinking, the people on the other side would be begging that people like Arnold would be speaking inside those corridors and saying, guys, this cannot continue in the manner in which it is. That would be the hope, I would think, that many Kenyans would be hoping
can I address,
right now.
Can I address that? Just before
Arnold and the likes of yourself who have seen these things would be able to say, when you guys close those curtains and sit in those offices and have those conversations, to be saying, guys, this cannot be.
I want to believe.
Is that happening?
No, let me say this. There are patriots in government just as there are patriots outside of government. Kuna mikora ndani ya serikali just the same way kuna mikora hata kwa media, kwa civil society. There are revolutionaries in government just as there are probably much more radical revolutionaries in government more than there are outside here. And people speak inside just as they will speak outside here.
So what is the problem?
That be assured of that. That's what I'm saying. That I would actually want to believe the IG when he says he's not sanctioning it. That probably it is on the peripheries. What I do not want us to have is actually to entertain a conversation that on issues like life, we can actually afford and even try to normalize a conversation about having an us versus them.
But that is what is happening. No. I'm sorry, Arnold, but that is exactly what is happening.
First of all,
hang on. Allow me to say this. This is exactly what is happening.
That is what some of us are actually disabusing.
When members of parliament, when members of government will stand on podiums and say things like your behavior is what is causing this, we've lost the value for human life. We've lost the value that we would put on Kenyans being able to open their mouths and express freely. We've lost it. It's out the window. But my question, which I hope you would answer before the time actually does run out, is who then should be having this honest conversation? Who should be having it?
That conversation should be had by leaders. And then now allow me to bring you home. I didn't want to use this word. But if you rationalize, normalize, and justify abductions, if citizens do, just allow me to actually go through this. If citizens who are deemed or suspected or alleged to wrong leaders are to be abducted, then it goes without saying that then we do not respect the rule of law
as leaders.
Yes. And therefore, the next time we citizens feel aggrieved by leaders, we will also abduct them. That is what anarchy means. By the way, the rule of law protects leaders more against the people than it protects the people against their leaders. We only have got 5,000 leaders in this country. We have got 55 million going to 60 million Kenyans. So tomorrow, if we make this, if we throw out the rule of law, it means that tomorrow when my MP, I suspect, I don't have to prove. I suspect that my MP has used CDF badly. I will organize with my local boys and we will abduct the MP. Is that really what they want? We must have a conversation where we actually do not confuse things here. If you go to court, we will not talk about you are abducted because of. We are supposed to deal with abduction as it is. What we are simply saying is this, that the leadership should not be dragging its feet. Our leaders should be bold enough. And here, I'm not talking about the people in government alone. Society has got so many leaders. When you get to a place where you are having bullets from churches, from mosques, from religious leaders, there is a problem. When people who initially did not make sense start making sense on some very sensitive national issues, it means that we need to have a conversation. When we start changing decisions, I have just given you an example. Like, for example, we are changing teams midway, right? As we change the teams, are we still implementing the same thing? And is it wrong to actually accept that we have changed instead of sticking to some of these issues? And that speaks to communication as it has been, because we are not communicating effectively. I'll give you a rundown to this. And this, of course, sometimes causes trouble for me a lot of times. Look at this. We have got the presidential communication team. We have got something called a National Communication Center. I think it's led by a certain Owino. We have got a Government Communication Center.
There are many of you guys inside there.
Yeah. We have got Office of the Government Spokesperson. The Government Delivery Unit now has got a very powerful communication unit.
Yes.
Yet there's very little communication that is coming out of that. Actually, if you threw a stone at State House today, you are likely to hit a director of communication of something.
You know, you're confusing me, Arnold. Because
no, I'm just saying.
You're really confusing me because as you're here, I'm assuming that you're speaking.
No,
with Kenyans.
I'm speaking to Kenyans.
You're
That's what I'm saying.
with Kenyans now.
Yes, I'm speaking to Kenyans.
The same confusion that is wrought is what you're also feeling.
Somebody has to be an adult in this particular setting. That adult, in where we are talking at each other, that adult has to come from the leadership.
Arnold.
Let's just get let's just get home here. That you see the noises from everywhere. People are saying on the other side, and now we are getting to places where people say that it doesn't matter, even hata kama kura itatosha, people will go through. It is those careless statements that hurt the regime, hurt the president, because a lot of these people have not won an election outside of their constituency, and their constituency speaks one language. The president has won an election nationally. So when you get a person who has never won an election outside of his community, thinking that he can actually instrumentally talk about how you win a national election, that person does not necessarily help you. The president needs cross-cutting support. Somebody who has never won an election outside of his constituency thinks that he can actually guide the president on how to move forward. Those people really do not help how we move forward. And that's why I'm saying we need to talk to each other. And how are we going to talk without proper communication?
And do these people elect themselves as spokespersons for the president, or does the president allow such individuals to speak on his
And
behalf?
that's what I'm saying. If our communication infrastructure was working effectively, those voices, I consider them noises. Because if the president speaks something, his message should be final.
And
if the IG speaks on security, his statement should be final and it should not be second guessed. So when the IG speaks and somebody elsewhere on Twitter says something, and then using that, people start second guessing the IG, it means that we are not communicating properly, and that we cannot put it on the citizenry. To whom much is given, much is expected.
Arnold, Arnold, you are the head of policy and public affairs UDA, and as that, I'm assuming your proximity to the president is close because he is the party leader. I'm assuming as the elder in the room, have you had this conversation with the president, or even tried to? Or getting to him is so
That's what I'm saying. That this conversation, we need to start having a honest conversation. Because
I think today, the Kool-Aid that Arnold is drinking is not allowing him to answer yes or no questions.
No. But this is the point. That issues of the Republic are much heavier. And sometimes you can't answer them in yes and no strokes.
Have you had a conversation with the president? It's
Definitely,
very
the president's
simple.
having. What I will say, I am not an advisor of the president. The president has got advisors. But I think if I listen to the president's advisors, they are very brilliant people. If you look at the plans and how they explain and elucidate it, it looks like they know what they are doing. But at the implementation level, you actually realize, you also listen to the people and realize that the people are saying something. So what is that the people are saying, and what is it that we are not doing? So having a conversation that moves forward, I think, and I will support Boni Halwale when Boni Halwale says that the biggest problem with this administration is communication.
Right.
Let's put it clear that no one should contradict the president when he speaks. And policy should align. The problem is that when the president speaks and data catches up with what he says and contradicts the president, then it ends up looking like the president is lying. Because data does not then match with what he has said. And a lot of that data is sometimes a mix-up of what PSS are saying down here, what people in parliament are saying. If he sorted his communication, if he sorted his advisory team, probably we will be speaking much more fluently and coherently. Because in public communication, there are three things. There must be clarity, there must be consistency, and there should be differentiation. Now, do you see clarity in the way we are communicating? No. Do you see consistency? No. Is there differentiation? Let me give you a simple basic about differentiation. We are talking about abduction, and you are talking about bad manners of children. People who are 18 years old are not children. They can vote for you. They can marry. They are adults on their own. But over and above, of course, all of us are people's children. When it appears that the children are being targeted, societies become so hostile. So if we were to fix our communication, for example, allow me to ask you, have you heard anything from my party ever since the abduction started? The spokesperson of the party is, of course, the Secretary General. Have you seen any statement to that effect?
Who is your Secretary General again?
Hassan Omar. You've not seen?
Joking, but okay.
Okay. Have you heard anything from the government spokesman to this effect? The statement you had from the IG, who is the spokesperson of the police, that's the final man. There's the spokesperson, of course, wrestler. Sometimes you wonder if she really is there doing her job or not, because a lot of these men are doing, I don't know that they do mansplaining, because there is somebody in that particular unit who's a competent spokesperson, a PhD holder to that effect, but you don't see her talking.
Sounds to me like y'all need some work indoors.
Yes, there is need. And that's what I'm saying. We need to have a honest conversation. The other day, Boni Halwale said that the biggest problem that probably we have as an administration is our communication. And I'll tell you 100%, if our communication worked properly, we will talk to Kenyans na tukasikizana. But we are not. The issues Kenyans are asking are basic. Why do we find it so difficult to respond?
Actually, tell us, why do you find it so difficult to respond?
I have already said. It is our communication.
Okay. Arnold,
Yeah.
on the 17th of December, you said, we aren't where we promised Kenyans will be, even from where we sit. We know we aren't sleeping on the job. The administration promised never to support abductions. We'll never go back to Yala River, yet we see abductions today. You say we are not sleeping on the job. I think you are sleeping on the job.
The thing is this, even as society, we need to follow through. When we disbanded the quote-unquote killer squads, have we even as media... It was public information.
No.
It was public information.
It was stated.
It was stated.
Yes.
And for me, I took it as a fact. So the president said that he disbanded all those things, and even somebody was fired for that, right? Did we follow up to know what happened to the officers that were in those squads? Or by when you disband it, that's the end of the story? Did we follow through?
Is it our job to follow through?
Yes, it is. It is.
Why is it our job?
It is because, you see...
We're a sovereign, is it?
Number one, we are sovereign. Number two, you guys are part of the civil society generally. Whatever estate you call yourself, you're still part and parcel of the civil society.
That will be the fourth estate.
Tell us, was anything followed through from the
I'm asking you guys, when we did that, because it means that probably that thing, once you disband and you leave them out there, were those officers, since they were committing a crime, were they punished?
Arnold, it's a very valid point you make. We did not follow up.
So no one follows up on these issues.
The media
So
did
when
not
we say
follow
we
up
should
on
not
that
be doing
issue.
some of these issues, a lot of these issues have not been followed through. Who are those officers? If you say you have disbanded, which means you have identified the people, right? Who are they? Can any of you
And where were they deployed to?
Where were they deployed to?
Or
Were
was-
they punished?
Or
Sadly,
was it a statement of convenience from the president?
Sadly, our time is coming to an end, Arnold. And I think if anything, there's been a revelation to us this morning from what you've said, that a lot really needs to happen. And I think a lot of that is inward and then now communicating outward about that. So we want to thank you very much for being here this morning. These conversations must continue. The revelations also must continue. Asante Sana for being here this morning. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.